Hi, everyone. I am here to walk you through our lesson on 2.9. So we're looking at the sophistication point and how to write a conclusion so that you can edit your body paragraphs. At this point, you should have watched the sophistication video. And so that was about 6 minutes and 40 seconds. So you saw the rubric for the sophistication point in that video. As a reminder, it's 1 point. And so it's not worth a ton if you think about the rest of your essay. What's important to me is that you know how to earn this point. It's up to you if you want to earn this point. The video talks you through, it's only 1 point. It doesn't matter that much. And so yes, it's only 1 point. I still think it's important that I give you ways how to get better at writing these essays. And overall, I want you to feel more confident in your writing abilities. So I still think it's important, but what's also important to me is that you develop those body paragraphs, but you're using strong word choice and you're developing these ideas and you're thinking about the bigger picture and you're connecting it to what's going on in society. That's going to earn you that point for sophistication. So this is a handout that's going to help you with that. This is in our week 11 folder. It's called Strong versus Weak Verbs. This is a huge one that will help you a lot in your writing for a rhetorical analysis essay, but also the other essays that we write for AP, and even further on, into 12th grade or beyond that. So use this, keep this. I hope it helps you. So we want to avoid these weak verbs. These weak verbs, notice there's not a ton, but they get used a lot. I see them all the time. So weak verbs are going to push you into summarizing the text. A rhetorical analysis is not called a rhetorical summary. It's called a rhetorical analysis. We want to analyze the rhetoric, right? We don't want to summarize the rhetoric. So weak verbs are going to be like says, explains, relates, states, goes on to say, tells. This quote shows or shows. Okay, those are weak verbs. Notice how many strong verbs you have here to choose from. So choose the ones that are appropriate to your writing and to the text. There are so many more strong verbs than there are weak verbs. So I don't want to see these weak verbs in your writing anymore. I want you to practice using these strong verbs. Another thing, with the sophistication point, we kind of talked last week about the hints for writing. And so we're just going to go over and review those again, and they will help you get better. So first thing, I see this all the time too. Don't laundry list those rhetorical choices or rhetorical devices. Don't say things like the author uses metaphor, metonymy, and allusion in his diction to appeal to his audience's sense of patriotism and empathy and compassion. That, first of all, it's just a run-on sentence, but I see it a lot. You want to focus on just those three and write your body paragraphs. Do not use our useless phrases. We talked last week about this. Don't use phrases like keep the reader's interest. Uses diction very effectively. Uses excellent. I wrote this comment on some of your papers or some of your assignments. Avoid at all costs emotionally loaded words like excellent, good. He's a fantastic speaker. He's an amazing president. You want to avoid those words. Use more objective words, objective adjectives to describe what you're trying to write about. Moving forward, paints a picture. To keep your attention, the author uses good syntax. I don't want to see these phrases in your writing. Avoid these dead words, especially like you, I think, I feel, I believe. I don't want to see I in this kind of essay. Said is also dead. Use a verb here that works and is so much more stronger than says. The author implies, the author or the speaker exemplifies, exclaims. Any of those are going to be better than said. Again, avoid summarizing by using those strong verbs. Avoid saying the author uses logos, pathos, and ethos. I've gotten a lot of questions lately about, are the appeals rhetorical choices? They are still choices, but the rhetorical appeals are more of the style of how the author, the speaker is writing, and they're connecting the appeals to other choices. So the appeals kind of fall in that gray area of Some teachers might tell you, yes, they are rhetorical choices, and someday, if you're in freshman composition sometime, they might say, no, they're just rhetorical appeals. I say you can use them as rhetorical choices. We've practiced it like that in our class. But what I want you to do is be very careful, because I want you to connect the rhetorical appeals to other things, connect it to audience, connect it to other choices. So you're not just laundry listing right here. Like, I don't want to see this in your writing. So, for example, the President Barack Obama utilizes vivid diction in order to appeal to the audience's sense of nostalgia. Okay, so there I'm still talking about pathos, but I'm also bringing in other rhetorical choices. So I'm not just like dropping pathos in there, because I don't want to see that. Okay. And do not let a laundry list the rhetorical choices. That's the last one on there. Okay, so moving on then to writing a conclusion. The conclusion is your last shot at getting the AP reader's attention, kind of summarizing up your main points. It shouldn't be longer than, like, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 sentences. I will say this, if you are coming, like, if you're at the AP exam and you're coming to that, like, we're hitting 40 minutes pretty quick here, and you have to skimp on something, I would rather see you skimp on the conclusion than the thesis and the body paragraphs, because I want you to think about this. There's no section on the rubric for just the conclusion, right? So the conclusion is just kind of that cherry on top of the cake. So this is the structure you can use. So you can restate the thesis statement, your thesis statement. Remember, the conclusion is your last chance of making an impact with the paper. So it is advisable that you restate the thesis in a way that brings in sophistication or digs deeper than the one in the introduction. However, do not introduce any new ideas or points when writing the conclusion. Don't bring any other like new rhetorical choices or claims. Just restate and summarize what you've said and what you've written about. Try not to begin your conclusion paragraph with in conclusion. I'll give you an example in a second here of how you can do that. Highlight your main claims for the commentary. You have been discussing these ideas in the body of the essay. Hence, the conclusion should only highlight a brief summary of what you've just written about. And then closing thought, close out the main purpose of the text being analyzed. Be thoughtful here and use a powerful clincher. So this is an example, a student example from the eulogy that we read in class. This is really well done. So this student earned a good score on the AP exam. So here is your example. So restating the thesis. Barack Obama uses exemplification, description, and causal analysis to invoke pride within his audience and memorialize Ted Kennedy. Okay, that's just like restating what they said in the beginning of their essay. Then moving on to highlighting main claims for commentary. The use of exemplification recognized exactly what Kennedy faced, as well as the many ways he helped others within his life. The descriptions provided gave detailed accounts of Kennedy at two distant points of his life that showed who he was. The use of causal analysis explains to the audience how Kennedy became who he was. Highlighting the main claims, what you already wrote about. Finally, a closing thought. All of the rhetorical modes were able to recognize how great Kennedy was as both an individual and a senator. Here is what not to do. This student did not earn a good score on the AP exam. In conclusion, Ted Kennedy was an amazing American that strove to help others throughout society using his Senate position. We'll talk about what they did wrong here in a moment. Then moving on to highlighting the main claims. Obama used his rhetoric. Okay, like I'm going to pause because you're going to notice me stutter through this. When you read your writing out loud, folks, you catch 100% of your mistakes. Always read your writing out loud, especially when you're at home right now and you don't have 29 classmates around you listening to you. Read it out loud. I promise you, you will catch those mistakes. Okay, so Obama used his rhetoric throughout his speech so show this and to show the many great things he did in fact do for citizens. Obama also used his rhetoric in order to emphasize the tragedies that occurred throughout Kennedy's life and how he overcame those challenges in order to greatly benefit the people. Kennedy also had many memorable moments that can't be forgotten, which Obama spoke of in his speech. Closing thoughts. Obama using his rhetoric in these ways overall was able to convey to the audience that Ted Kennedy was a great man that strived to help others and overcame his challenges in life. So let's start with restating your thesis. This was all summary. This is just summarizing what this text is saying, right? A rhetorical analysis is not about the what, it's about the why and the how. So do not just summarize what the speech or the text or the letter said. Do not start with in conclusion. You have an example of how you can do that on the previous slide. Do not summarize what the speech said and do not use loaded or emotional words. So Ted Kennedy was an amazing American. You want to avoid that. You want to use words, more objective words that you can actually comment on and analyze without like bias coming into play. Okay, looking at highlighting the main claims, make sure you're writing in present tense and you aren't using the same words over and over, and just check those grammar mistakes, folks. That will help you out a ton. And so come to this and look at this if you need an example of what not to do. Use it in guided practice today. So stay tuned. We will be going over the directions for guided practice in a moment.